Hey, holy smokes, now it's episode 51, and it took us 51 invites to get the unbelievable attorney of Florida, Eric Glazer, who's the host of Condo Craze and HOA. He has the face of radio. I knew I tried not to say, but I had to. But the forever handsome, his wife finds him quite handsome. So that's all that matters, right, Eric?
Who said that?
Well, I did call her up and she said, who? And she says, okay, I guess you can say it.
Exactly. You got a permission, I guess.
But, Eric, you're a New Yorker, which people know by your voice. Now they
got a problem with that?
Well, you freaking kidding me? Listen, all of my neighbors are from New York, and they go, Kelly, your New York accent ain't that good. I go, what are you, crazy or what, huh?
So, forget about it.
Hey, I lived in New York back in the 80s, so, I played basketball in Harlem.
You're a survivor.
I am, and I'm just like all three of us were very all happy transplants to the beautiful state of Florida.
So really quick, in the 80s, what was I doing? I was working my way through college at NYU. I was lucky enough to get a job at the Brooklyn DA's office. And during the crack crisis, I was banging on doors in the worst neighborhoods in Brooklyn you can imagine.
Listen, there's no conversation about Hunter today.
But I survived that.
Oh, the 80s. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That had to be, how incredible was that to be there at that time? I mean, I remember my friends, and I'm not going to mention their names. We're playing basketball down in Harlem, and then we're up in New York City, in Manhattan on 42nd Street. And one of my buddies buys a bag of oregano for 40 or 50 bucks.
Right.
I still tease him to this day.
But if you're playing ball in the 80s on a basketball court anywhere in Manhattan, your feet were crunching on crack files.
Right. Oh, we were playing over in Harlem.
Yeah.
And I'm not small, but my friend, without telling you who he was, let's just say he's very big, because if I describe him, other people are going to know who made that purchase of oregano. I swear to God, it was oregano. I thought it was the funniest damn thing I've ever seen. But that was a tough time. That was definitely
really quick story. My brother, may rest in peace, he stopped at a traffic light one day. Some guy comes over to him and say, "You want to buy a camcorder?" Remember camcorders?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Give me $1,000. You got this camcorder. No, get away from me. Give me $800. No, get away from me. 600, 500. He goes down to 200. My brother says, "Okay, $200. Yeah, give me the goddamn camcorder." Pulls over to the side. He got 2 rocks inside.
No.
Oh my God.
2 rocks. They were nice rocks, but it cost him $200.
But that was New York. Well, back then they did have the pet rock, craze.
Exactly.
So, was that maybe that was the 70s?
And you know what? I love the story and I laugh about it all the time.
Right.
I thought you were talking about a different kind of rock, so I finally got it.
No, this was rocks that you would find.
Okay.
We apologize to our 2 viewers about the New York slang that he used during that story. So you're in New York, you go to NYU, you have that great experience, and then you come down, and I can tell by your tan, you come to the University of Miami Law School. How was that?
Correct. It was tough. And I worked my way through that too, after the first year. You can't work in your first year, impossible, but
right.
My second year, I worked, and I loved working. I worked for a small firm and learned more. With all due respect to the University of Miami, learned more working than going to school for those 2 years. So I really enjoyed it. I had a boss that let me run, so I did it. I mean, I was an attorney in my second year of law school. It was great. I thank him to this day. He truly made me what I am.
Or if there was somebody born to be an attorney, that would be you. So let me mention how I met you the first time. It was an L&L Expo. I don't remember which. It was one of the 3 counties here down in South Florida. Sure. And there's, everyone's got I think, we had like maybe 30, 40, maybe 50 people in our classes. Eric's got a couple hundred people or more. I mean, it is insane. All these people going to see the attorney Eric Glazer talk. I'm like, who's this rock star? And then so I peeked into the room and heard him talk for about 10, 15 minutes before ours started. And I'm like, okay, I get it. This guy knows his stuff. And then after every time he speaks at one of these L&L events, who's a non-pretend sponsor of our show, there's this huge line of people that come to talk to him and ask him just legal questions. And he just spends hours and hours talking to people, just, giving them his wisdom. His business is fantastic. This is not an infomercial. He's got business forever. He's a great asset to the business world for condo law. But to watch what you do outside of your business, which pays for you and your family to travel around the world, you really do put a lot into this community.
I appreciate it, and I mean this sincerely. You go to these L&L events, the trade show events where you get the chance to speak and meet people. Then on the radio show on the weekends and stuff. The truth of the matter is, many people who are calling in or are meeting me for the first time, that's maybe the only time in their life that they ever get a chance to talk to a lawyer because of what a lawyer charges.
Right.
So they get this one shot, they get the 2 shots to talk to a lawyer, and that's it. And I got to tell you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I think that's a wonderful thing that I can do for somebody, to give them a chance to answer a question or two. So what? What's the big deal? Answering a question for free. If I don't do that, the truth of the matter is, they don't get a chance to talk to a lawyer maybe ever.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And awesome. Lisa McGill's the same way, where she's just a wonderful asset. And there's a lot of other attorneys that are great too.
No, fantastic.
But, what you guys are, y'all are a handful of a huge, there's a reason why we have attorney jokes. So
oh, I know it. I know it.
Sometimes I'm afraid to call up Eric just to call him up to say, hey, because I'm afraid he's going to send me a bill. But
but did I do it the last time? If not,
my phone, they were asking me to do a reverse Venmo at like 2 a.m. I'm like, man, I talked to him at 8 o'clock. He's a little slow today. So before we talk about all the fun stuff about condo law and things that are going on in Florida, you just had an amazing trip with your family. And I know as your kids are getting older, and so, I've got a friend that's in Europe right now with her 3 daughters. And this is such a special trip because your kids grow. My daughter's 27. I mean, I don't know if she remembers my name.
Yeah, my daughter's 26.
Yeah, so where all did you go?
Got a few shots left, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got a few chances left. So whatever you got, take advantage of, right?
I loved watching on Facebook, seeing all the different places you were going, and it was very cool. So tell everybody where you went.
Yeah, we wound up starting in Greece, and then we went to Turkey. Amazing story about Turkey, real quick. My wife loves fake bags and buying all that stuff. Some real, but a lot of fake stuff. She go to Chinatown in New York. She'll spend hours looking at that. You go to Turkey. Turkey has the most gorgeous, beautiful stores you've ever seen. I mean, I know they spend God knows how much money making these stores gorgeous, and they're selling all fake stuff.
No way.
It's completely allowed by the government of Turkey to make all fake stuff. Incredible. Wow. Yeah, I'm not going to say if we bought anything or not, but
yeah, really, you just outed your wife.
I'll tell you my wallet the next time. But
hey, no one's going to steal her purse now. So,
but it's amazing that they just said, nope, we're going to let our stores here create all fake stuff, and Louis Vuitton and all your other stores, go screw yourself. Nothing you can do in our country. Amazing. Yeah.
I just had 3 patent attorneys call me up and they're freaking out. So
true story, just amazing that it allowed it to happen. So yeah, we wound up going to Turkey. We wound up going to Greece. We wound up going to Israel, which is in a bunch of turmoil right now.
Right.
And,
Did you see Dawn Miller there while you were there?
Nope.
She was over there around the same time you were.
Really? No. Yeah. It was an amazing trip. I love doing that with the family since the kids are born. Every single summer, no matter what.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere else in the world, no matter what. So,
or if either of them say they don't want to go next time, I'm available.
What they do say is, I'm the type of guy, me. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Let's go. We got this tour to take and that tour to take, and push-ups and sit-ups, and they go. and they go nuts. Like, we're not going on vacation with you anymore. That's it.
Right.
We want to relax. You're killing us. This is every year we have the same fight, but they go. But
sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses, but I don't know. It's
I've
tough.
never done it. Yeah, right.
I guess around here we smell the palm trees.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had a client, a very rich guy, that said, some defendant said to him one day, sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses. And this multi-zillionaire says, I don't have to stop and smell the roses. I own the goddamn roses. One of the best lines that I ever said for a litigant. It was great. It was awesome. One of the best. I'll remember it forever. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put the parental control on your language today on the bottom of the screen. Gee. Yeah, I'll tell you what. That reminds me. Back in the mid '80s, my girlfriend Tracy at the time was graduating from George Mason University, and that was the time this guy got the Nobel Peace Prize for economics. Right. So he's the guest speaker. So we're all excited, and I'm sitting next to Tracy's parents out in the audience, in this huge stadium, the Patriot Center, and this guy gets up and he starts talking, and he says. Don't ever slow down and smell the roses. Always be productive. Yada yada yada. And totally. and Tracy's dad looks at me and he goes, "Did I really pay for this guy to speak?" Because you do have to. Your trip was busy and action packed, but you work hard because you can't embrace trips like that. And I know you're having a good time doing it.
Most important thing I do all year.
Yeah. That's our why. Our why's our kids, our family, our friends. But I remember going, I will never take that guy's advice. I mean, what roses, would roses smell as sweet if they were called anything but a rose? I believe William Shakespeare used to say, and my mother used to always say that to us. But the point of that whole line is, you got to enjoy the good parts of life. And we also have to take care of business. So speaking 100%. Of business, today's sponsors would be Rockin Wellness. So, just kidding. Well, I do drink it every day for the last 12 years. So Rockin Wellness, Google it. There's no fee being paid to me to advertise that. But you have been spending, other than your practice, other than your trips, other than your radio show and going to trade shows and meeting with clients, you've also been doing a lot of activity up in Tallahassee. And can you talk just a few minutes? I don't want to bore people, but there's a lot of things that are happening in the condo world. What's some of the highlights you see that people need to be aware of?
Do you think? I mean, it's been an unbelievable 2 years. But, I just want to tell everybody what has happened in the last 2 years subsequent to the collapse of, the building in Surfside, which was just beyond tragic. So after Champlain Towers did collapse 2 years ago, I certainly was of the opinion, I think everybody expected, that the legislature during that session was going to pass several safety laws, right? Or certainly laws that required mandatory funding of reserves. That's something I've been pushing for years. As a matter of fact, you can look it up. In May of 2018, when the Champlain Towers was being looked at by their own engineer, and the engineer said, they need a $5 million special assessment at that time. While that was going on in May of 2018, I wrote a blog that I sent to all of the members of the Florida House and Senate, urging them to please pass mandatory reserves. Why? I went to a board meeting one night in May, again, 2018, and it was for a lousy $300 special assessment in a 55 and over community. Just $300, not $300 a month,
right?
Just $300, right? I can't tell you how many elderly people came up to me that night, crying, literally crying, begging me as the attorney, please don't let the board do this to us. We can't afford it. And I left that meeting, not to over-exaggerate, but I'm telling you this is how I felt, like, holy cow, is Florida in trouble.
Right.
If these people can't pay a lousy $300 one-time assessment, what's going to happen when the real repairs need to be made? What's going to happen when a $3,000 special assessment needs to be made, or a $30,000 special assessment needs to be made? So that night, honest to God, go home, write this blog to the Florida legislature, sent it to everybody, urging them to pass mandatory reserves. It's ignored. And what does it take? It takes the collapse of a building and the death of 98 people for the legislature to finally realize, hey, maybe it's a good idea that we make people put away a little money every month so that when repairs need to be made, they're made. You know?
And how sad is it that it took legislation to get this stuff moving?
Terrible.
You know, I mean, if you live in a place, the largest assessment I have personally or professionally been involved with was one for $330,000 per unit.
Oh, per unit, that's amazing. That's
per
a lot
unit,
of money.
And it was, you know, it's definitely, and I mentioned a lot to potential clients just to let them know, no matter how bad theirs is, you know. Now, of course, this was a building where 90% of the people wrote it, could afford it, either financially or write a check. They had equity, huge equity in their properties.
Right.
And I think about 8 to 10 of them actually sold, and they sold walking away with a ton of money. So they're okay. Sometimes people have to move.
That's great for them, but that's not the case for 95% of the people that are here, especially people who are here 55 and over.
Right.
That's not
hey, Eric, nothing good financially is going to come out of this with what needs to be done. We understand that, but it has to happen. I guess question I have for you is what percentage do you think of these homeowners and these associations are going to be faced with these enormous bills and they're just going to walk away, and then the big money is going to come in and then they're going to take over?
Yes. I mean, I don't know what percentage, but there's going to be a lot of condos where, especially older condominiums in, let's just say, less affluent neighborhoods.
Yep. Good way to say that. Away from the coast.
Yeah, away from the coast. Correct. Exactly. You know, all of a sudden they're going to need a few $1 million in repairs, and their units are just not worth it at the time.
Right.
And developers are going to walk over and say, look, instead of you paying $100,000 special assessment now, how about I give you $100,000 and you walk away?
Yep.
You know, and it's going to make sense for the developer. It's going to make sense for the unit owner. And you're going to see, ironically, gentrification, I think.
You bet. Absolutely.
In a lot of communities right now, you know, like I said, that are not enough, you know, affluent. That's what I expect to see.
Sure. You know, I like to beat up you attorneys about one thing that you just mentioned. It's about the reserves. And I wish the reserves, and I hope you're listening to me out in Tallahassee. I know there's 1 or 2 people that do. I'm more concerned about getting the buildings right today. I would rather see the reserve requirements get pushed down 5 years so we can address everything else that needs to be done with these buildings today.
I need to comment, but let me just fill you in really quick about what happened after the collapse. Okay. So like I said, here we are expecting major legislation to get passed, right? And lo and behold, there's fighting going on about until the very day of the last of the period. Democrats can't agree with the Republicans, etc. And the session ends, and not a single new law gets passed to protect owners in the state of Florida. I was blown away. What a smack in the face to the 98 victims and their families. I honestly could not believe that nothing was done.
Right.
So wrote a letter to Governor DeSantis, overnighted it, telling him that, I think the legislature and him, quite frankly, spit in the face of all the victims. It's terrible, terrible, terrible thing what Florida just did. And by the way, Governor, if another building falls on your watch, your rising political career is done.
Right.
Second building falls while you did nothing about it, you're done. Right? So,
and you're 100% correct.
Yeah, gets that letter. The next day or the following day, I was on Jim DeFeedy's show. And look, I'm a Republican, but I was out there ripping the Republicans apart. They control everything in Tallahassee. Period. Right. Whatever they want, they get. And not to pass new legislation was just disastrous, embarrassing, quite frankly. So I'm on his show the next day, ripping everybody apart. And again, in my letter, I urged the governor to call the legislature back into session. After DeFeedy's show, what happens? The governor calls the legislature back into session and says, under the guise of insurance reform. Okay. Next day, we have condo reform.
Whatever it takes.
So, I'm not saying I did it. I'm just telling you what happened. You be the judge. That's all. I mean,
you did it, and hopefully a few others did as well. But doggone it, I'm glad they listened, because they had to. I mean,
it had to be
trust me. We're with you 100%. But you're a man of action, and I love that. And you don't mince words, and you don't worry about anything but what's right. And that's what we need, people like that. So big hats off to that.
So we had major changes in the law. I mean, it all came at once. It did all come at once.
Right.
So,
and it wasn't the best written legislation either. It was the ambiguous. What's the word? What's my word I'm looking for?
Ambiguous, and lots of ambiguities.
That's the word I was looking for.
This is what happens when you rush.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you rush. So because they didn't do anything, and because it was so embarrassing that they didn't do anything, okay, bang, we'll call the legislature back into session. We'll have new laws passed in 2 days.
Right.
That's what happened. Yeah. Okay. So sure, things weren't perfect, but that new legislation certainly set the tone for what's coming. And what it set, mandatory inspections now for condos. You wouldn't believe this, and I'm sure you know this, but a lot of your listeners may not. You build buildings in Dade and Broward, and those buildings in Dade and Broward, yes, after 30 years, they were getting inspected again. There are how many other counties? 60-something other counties in the state of Florida. If you build a building in any of those other counties, that building could be built and never be inspected again for the life of the building. Think about what we just said. It's insanity, no?
Oh, it is. And I'm proud of Broward and Miami-Dade of leading the charge on that. But there's still some of the stuff that we saw get passed, it was just, that was not so great either. So
no, I
not without.
I gotta tell you, I'm in favor of doing something rather than doing nothing, because I don't want another building to collapse. And do I believe it can happen again? Yeah, I do. I do believe it.
Yeah,
we'll see it happen within the next year.
It will.
Yeah,
for sure.
It just happened in another state. I want to say maybe it was Indiana. Another building came down. If you look at it, it looks just like exactly what happened to the Champlain Towers. So, this is going to happen, by the way, not just here in Florida. If other states around the country don't follow this new legislation, unfortunately, their buildings are going to fall too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that the whole country needs to start looking at right now. Mandatory inspections for the buildings as they get older.
I like to dog New York for a lot of reasons, mainly because you're from there. No, I'm just kidding. And no, but one thing I'll say about New York City is their building codes and the way they do things and their safety. It's excellent. And that's one of the good things about my business partners.
If you've got money and the right bribe, you can basically build anything you want to.
But that's the dark side. But they really do have some great laws and standards in New York City. I mean, what is there, 1 million buildings in the boroughs? I mean, it's crazy that land can handle that.
Right, and that more things don't fall in New York. It is amazing.
Well, there's a congressman in either South Carolina or Georgia that thinks they're going to actually flip Manhattan. I don't know if you remember that with Guam.
Look, we had Giuliani, we had Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Saved the freaking city. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, it breaks my heart. We're off the topic, I know. But man, it breaks my heart when I see where New York City is at.
Oh.
It breaks my heart.
I get worried when friends go there now.
Oh, I know. I get worried when I go there now. Believe me. I mean, I know how hard. I told you I was there, in the 80s. I know what New York was like after I left. I'll tell you, how did I wind up at the University of Miami? Because in my heart of hearts, I never, ever thought that New York City could flip and be a safe place to live. Never thought. I'm saying, how could I ever raise a family here? This is crazy. So I left. I went to the University of Miami. And after I leave, what happens? Giuliani and Bloomberg, what do they got? 5 terms in a row?
Right.
Made the city a wonderful, wonderful place to live, to raise a family, to open a business. And now all of it thrown away. All of it. All that hard work for nothing.
Very sad. Very sad. But
absolutely.
Majorly to Giuliani.
Oh, no question. I mean, he had a hard part when he came in. it was a total disaster. I mean, Bloomberg just took over after Giuliani did the hard work.
He was
kept it going. But Giuliani did it based on what did he call it? Like broken window theory. Go after the small crimes. Go after every little thing, right?
Yeah.
Let the people know that you're out there. Be tough on the bad guys. It worked like a charm. Listen, how can you turn a city around, right? The first thing you got to do is protect the people. If the people don't feel safe, they're not going to open businesses there. If the people feel safe, okay, now we'll open businesses. That'll bring commerce. That'll bring tax revenue. And they did it. And they did it. He did it.
But people are voting for their feet right now. People are voting with their feet right now. Not to get into all this, but to your point, that's the obvious thing with what's going on now. They find out that they don't have to stay there. They can work remotely. Time is running out for all of us, maybe, right? So they're voting with their feet.
Yeah. You know the tax revenue that the state of New York has lost in the last 2 years?
It's going to be massive.
Incalculable. Crazy amounts of money. New York State as a whole is going to be in such financial trouble, which they're already in, because of the people with money, the people with businesses, the people that really do pay taxes. They're gone.
They're never coming back. They're never coming back.
And we welcome them to South Florida.
Absolutely. So, the amazing part, there's always a thought, you're worried, well, are these people going to come down here and vote Democrat? No. You tell me it's something like the people that are coming here from the Northeast, they're registering something like 80% to 20%. As Republicans. So we're good. We're good. You're not going to see the crap that happened up there happen down here. It's just not going to happen.
Well, as long as we keep the eye on the ball. We got to make sure that we let people remember what's going on. So it was the mid 80s. IBM, I was working for them and they said, hey, we need you to go work up in New York. I was offered 3 places, New York, Delaware, Wilmington, and Philadelphia. So I drive into New York. I drive from DC to New York. And the first thing that happens to me is some guy comes up and wants to clean my window. When he wants me to throw a couple dollars. No, I'm a redneck from Virginia. I kind of told him what he could do. And I drive, and then I spend 2 hours finding a parking space. I go up to 590 Madison Avenue. I interview. I'm scared to death because we're up on like the 50th floor. And in Virginia, in DC, the height restriction is 555 feet for a building.
The Washington Monument.
Exactly, right? Which is 555 feet. So I'm freaking out. So I took the job in Philly. But, several years later, I go back to New York. I drive into town. Giuliani got that. And that's one of the first things he went after was those guys harassing people coming into the city. And that's how it's little steps like that turned around the world's greatest city, which is no longer the world's greatest city.
Absolutely. I mean, kudos to Giuliani at that time. Amazing.
It's not even America's greatest city.
Yeah. No, it's not even New York's greatest city.
No.
I'd rather go to Poughkeepsie.
You're right. No, and it's not just New York. I had the pleasure of visiting San Francisco many times. Without a doubt, the nation's most beautiful city. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And you watch what that became.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You can't believe it. You can't. How could any group of legislators watch this happen and not do anything about it? How? Unless you don't give a damn and you deliberately want it to happen. That's the only way.
California has half of the homeless population in the United States.
Right, exactly. 50%.
But if you're going to be homeless, that's the place to be homeless. It's beautiful there.
Beautiful, right? Yeah.
Love that state. Would never would never move there.
Yeah, they only have 10% of the population.
Yeah.
But they have 50% of the homeless.
Very sad.
Yeah, and that governor should be the next president of the United States, right? Yeah.
Hey,
God forbid. God forbid. He could do the same thing for the United States that he did for California. God forbid you should see Gavin Newsom.
Listen, I'm not going to defend that guy because I'm not a fan. And this is the first time we've ever been political on this show. And why not? But Gavin Newsom inherited a crappy state. I think there's been a lot of people before him that have really made that place so sad.
Over the years,
he has done nothing to turn it around.
Yeah, no, it's been a place for liberals to go and pump their ideology. And this is what you get.
Yeah. And they don't live it. They just make it their policy.
Look at all these stores. Look at all the businesses that have now vacated Market Street in San Francisco, the #1
Right.
tourist attraction for shopping. They pulled their stores out permanently. Just think about that. I mean, you know, and they're not coming back either, ever, unless it turns around. So they took the world, one of the world's most beautiful cities, and absolutely destroyed it. And for that to happen in California or America is just, it's embarrassing to the state. It's embarrassing to our country that we let it happen.
Yes, sir.
I'm grateful that I went there when it was beautiful.
Absolutely.
Me too.
It wasn't great, but it was still beautiful. Now,
I gotta tell you, you know, you asked me when we got on the show about, you know, the fact that I get to travel around the world with my kids and my wife, and it's fantastic. But let me tell you something. When I do travel, you won't believe what the people in other countries are starting to think about our country.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the great United States of America. You know, we have this thought in our mind that the world thinks we're the greatest and the most powerful, and that's gone. I'm telling you, it's gone.
Yeah, that's not healthy.
Right. I meet with a lot of people from around the world, and they don't have good things to say about our country anymore. They certainly, you know, we want to really make it political. They certainly don't have good things to say about our leadership.
Right.
They think our leadership is an absolute joke, absolute hysterical. They cannot believe what the United States has become. And it happens basically in every country I visit, bar none.
But the proof is in the pudding that we can turn it around, because we did it in the 80s.
Listen.
And we can do it again.
We did it 6 years ago. Okay?
Yeah.
We did it 6 years ago. And if we don't get him back, we're in some serious trouble. I mean, somebody tell me one thing that's better now than it was 6 years ago. One thing. You're paying less for gasoline? No. You're paying more for food. Our foreign relations is a disaster. Crime is out of control. How were things 6 years ago when Trump came in? Phenomenal. The country was never doing better. We had China back on their heels, right? That's all gone.
We fixed NAFTA.
In a snap. It was all gone in a freaking snap. Look what happened to the country. At least that's my 2 cents on it.
I think Kevin Sorbo's watching. He just sent me a text. You know Kevin?
Maybe by face, I'm sorry.
He was Hercules. Kevin Sorbo. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I met him a few times, and he just sent me a note. How cool is that?
That is cool. That's
I just name dropped.
But so what my political thinking is, and I'm not kidding. I mean it for my children. I really hope and pray that we flip, and that the elections are fair and right in going forward next year. Because if we continue down this path, I don't know if it's going to be reversible. I really don't.
And Florida can't, unless we, become our own country. And we need a strong, level-headed defense. We need to protect our borders. We need to make the economy as strong as possible, because the strong economy creates a great atmosphere for protection.
You mentioned borders. Can you imagine a country not having a border? Think about it. It's impossible to believe that, but that's what happened. How many million? The government's reporting 7 million. So we know people. If they're admitting to 7 million, it's probably more like 11, 12. But don't worry, they're going to come back for their hearing that they have in 2028, right? Yeah, of course. They got it marked down in their iPhone.
Checks in the mail. That's the new checks in the mails line.
I mean, can you imagine how silly the whole process is? How scary, how dangerous the whole process is. God knows, you let in people with, God knows what kind of criminal record they have. They're not getting tested for God knows. We're seeing diseases in the country we haven't seen, in decades, that are now back in the country, that I'm being told from people who work, as doctors. And this is where we're at. It's tragic.
Since we're going down that rabbit hole, and we should have been off several minutes ago, but I'm going to say this. And I can't think of the name of the movie. It's something about freedom that I am going to see sometime this week before it's out.
Sound of Freedom.
Oh, yeah, I know. I saw the coming traffic.
And that ties into, child trafficking. I mean, protect the kids, for God's sake. I don't care what happens to adults. Adults do stupid things. Go do it. Just don't get behind the wheel, okay? And don't get in the voting box, voting booth. But you got to protect the kids, and we're making, with our borders being unprotected, it's really making it even that much more terrible.
How dangerous. We have a fentanyl problem in the country, right? One little tiny package of fentanyl can kill how many people?
Sure.
And it pours in.
And that's why people need to stop vaping and smoking marijuana, because you never know when they're going to sneak that crap in there, and then you're dead.
Right. So, it's tragic, but now it's getting close to election time. So suddenly you're hearing, wait a minute, no, border crossings are down by 70%. They want to do that stuff. Right. Hey, good for the governor of Texas putting barriers in the way. If the country wants to do it, Texas has the right to protect itself. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we want to protect our condos.
We certainly do.
I'm just trying to pull it around, but
we're trying. And, the problem, you can't show this to anybody because all the old timers that live in the condos, they are Democrat. Like the ones in Broward. Broward is a hard country to flip, a hard county to flip. It's impossible.
You're killing me.
I mean, let's put it this way. I seriously wanted to run in Broward a couple of years ago. I mean, I met with the top people from a lot of important people met with me. And I will tell you that, at least at the time, they're telling me on your best day, you're going to lose 52-48 if running as a Republican, and you're going to want to kill yourself. But
we don't.
Maybe Broward is a little different since then, but man, Broward is tough. I don't see the governor won Dade. I don't think he won Broward. He still lost Broward, even though we won the state.
It's gotten a lot better, but let's.
I hope. I really do.
It's where we live. So,
and as long as we're on that topic, I hope our governor stays governor. I hope he throws his support a little bit behind Trump, shows a little loyalty, and that we get the best of both worlds. Right? That's what I'm hoping for, quite frankly.
So we've officially have been 51 shows with no politics. But Eric Glazer comes on, baby.
I'll make you laugh, buddy. I'll make you laugh. So I'll do politics on my show, right? On Sunday. I'll come in and people tell me I'll come in Monday morning. The Democrats will write me emails that say, I thought this is a condo show. How dare you talk politics? Stay off of politics. The Republicans will write me, that was fantastic. Keep going, plugging away.
I love it.
Right.
Hey, that's why we're friends. I tell you what, I've been here for 5 years and I've met some of the greatest people, and you're definitely one of them. And I'm thrilled to call you a friend and a colleague, and we really appreciate you. And buddy, one of the things I love about you, you don't mince words. You tell it like it is, and you're pretty damn smart.
Thanks. Even my wife tells me, "You sure you want to say that? You sure you want to?" Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure I want to say that. Because either you're real all the time or you're fake.
Yep. I'm with you. I'm with you. Trust me. My ex-wife used to cringe all the time.
Yeah. It is what it is with me. Thanks. Appreciate that you see that.
We love everything that you do. You're great for Florida. You're great for South Florida. You're great for the condo world. And you're great for the show. Hey, if people get mad, I don't care.
I think you're great for the country, man. I appreciate you, Eric.
Thanks.
And if somebody that has an opposing opinion wants to reach out to me and say they want to be on our show, come on.
All right. So I'll tell you my dream. You know my dream? You ready?
Ready. To
run against Debbie Wasserman and kick butt.
I would work so hard for you. You have no idea. So, I'm from DC. I'm living in DC. She comes out and she starts saying, whoever drives a foreign car is terrible. And I was driving a Toyota. It's built in Kentucky, but she was kind of bad mouthing me as a voter, right? So little I know I was going to live close to her district one day. So later on that day, she goes driving out in a beautiful Infiniti sports car, and they catch her on camera.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
She's a fraud.
As I say, not as I do, right?
Yeah.
That's all the Democrats. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So now you know the dream.
If you want to run, I myself and a lot of people will support you in every way, shape, and form. I think you could win. I'd love to see you run for Congress.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that very much.
So
I look at her district and I say, and her district basically cuts down Sterling Road from Weston to the beach and then goes all the way down the beach basically to Miami. And I'm like, that's not her district. That's my district. That's the people that I've been with for the last 30 years. That's the people I've been teaching for the last 30 years. You know, so I met with them more than she has.
Yeah.
So
I've never seen her down here. I've never seen her on the nothing down here.
Right.
I saw her all the time on the news up in DC. She's a huge presence on local news in DC.
Right. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. But I think down here, there's a shot. I still, I think there's a shot. I think constituents, have met me as much as they've met her. No two ways about it.
Would love to see you run. Love it. What a great way to end the show. We appreciate your time. We know you're very busy. Wayne, always a pleasure to see the king of Wayne's World. And
I appreciate you having me. That by the way, both.
Definitely.
Everybody have a great rest of the week.
Okay, you guys be well. Take care.
All right. Ciao.